Hey, what's up guys? Brian Kelly here from Zombie Guitar. Today in this video, I just want to talk about how many keys are in music. And when I say in music, I'm referring to the 12-note Western music system. So in the 12-note Western music system, how many keys? So the way I always do it is just there's 12 keys. That's how I teach it. That's how I think about it. That makes the most sense to me. That's the simplest way to think about it in my mind. However, there's a lot of different opinions about this, and I'm not saying that my way's right or my way's wrong. There's logical reasons why there's different answers besides just 12. If you post this question in a music theory forum or a Facebook group or something like that, and you say, hey, how many keys are there? You're going to get a bunch of different answers. And in this video, I want to talk about the reason why there are so many different answers. So some answers you're going to hear 12 keys, you're going to hear 13, you're going to hear 15, you're going to hear 24, you're going to hear 30, and it can go as high as 105. So that can definitely sound crazy, and most people aren't going to say there's 105 different keys, but if you listen to the explanation of why there's potentially 15 keys and why there's potentially 30 keys, by logical extension, there could potentially be 105 keys. So I'm going to explain all this stuff to you in this video. But just keep in mind the way that I personally believe it, the way that I teach it, I just like to say there's 12 keys. So anytime I can simplify things to the smallest number possible, that's just the way that I like to do things. It's the simplest. So let's look at all the different possible ways that you can come up with all these different numbers. All right, so let's look at a logical explanation about why there may be 12 keys. So in the Western musical system, the 12-note chromatic scale contains 12 notes. So you can start on any one of those 12 notes and then play the major scale. The do, re, mi, fa, sol, la, ti, do. That's the major scale. So if you start on any one of those 12 notes, you can start on the note C and then play do, re, mi, fa, sol, la, ti, do. That's 7 notes. That gives you 7 unique notes. Those 7 unique notes make up what is known as a key or a key signature. So you can write music using those 7 notes, that one key signature. You can create chords using those 7 notes. You can create chord progressions using chords that you have built from those 7 notes. You can then solo over top of those chords using a guitar or using a saxophone or using your voice, sticking to just those 7 notes. So if you sing or play any other notes outside of those 7 notes, it's technically an out-of-key note. So there's 12 possible starting notes, 12 possible key signatures. So let's look at some of the other possibilities now. All right, so the reason that some people may say that there's 13 key signatures instead of just 12 is due to what is known as the enharmonic problem. So what an enharmonic is note could be called 2 different things. You can call a note by its sharp name or by its flat name. So if you look at a piano, you're going to have 7 white notes and 5 black notes. So the white notes are just natural notes, C, D, E, F, G, A, and B. The black notes can either be called, like if you look at the black note that's in between F and G, you can call that F sharp or you can call that G flat. So all the black notes can either be called by their sharp name or by their flat name. So when you look at your circle of fifths, and you start at the very top, the key signature of C major, there contains no sharps or flats. It's C, D, E, F, G, A, and B. If you move in the clockwise direction, the first key signature in the clockwise direction is the key signature of G. So that contains 1 sharp. The key signature of G is G, A, B, C, D, E, and F sharp. Again, it's the do, re, mi, fa, sol, la, ti scale. Start on the note G, play your do, re, mi, fa, sol, la, ti, do. Stick to your major scale formula of whole steps and half steps. The notes that you come out with are those 7 notes. There's 1 sharp in the key of G major. If you then continue to move clockwise to the next key signature, which is D on the circle of fifths, that has 2 sharps. If you then move clockwise again to A, that has 3 sharps. So as you move around the circle of fifths in the clockwise direction, you're adding a sharp to each of these key signatures. If you start on the C up at the top and then you move in the counterclockwise direction, you're adding a flat to each of the key signatures. So starting on C, which has no sharps and flats, if you move clockwise or counterclockwise by 1 spot, it's F. So F has 1 flat in it. The key signature of F, the 7 unique notes in the key signature of F, the do, re, mi, fa, sol, la, ti, do scale, starting on F and playing your major scale formula set of notes, results in F, G, A, B flat, C, D, E. So those are your 7 unique notes in the key of F. If you then continue to move around the circle of fifths in the counterclockwise direction, B flat has 2 flats. You then continue along, you have 3 flats, then 4 flats, then 5 flats. So some keys have sharps in it, some keys have flats in it. The key signature of C major has no sharps, no flats. Each key has its own unique combination of 7 notes, right? So the enharmonic problem occurs at the very bottom of the circle of fifths. So if you continue to add a sharp to each of the key signatures, F sharp has 6. So let's look at the unique notes in the key signature of F sharp. So you have F sharp, G sharp, A sharp, B, C sharp, D sharp, E sharp. So those are your 7 unique notes for the key signature of F sharp. So one of the rules when you're writing out these notes for key signatures is you can't have the same instance of the same letter. So like you're never going to see a C and a C sharp in the same key signature. Or you're never going to see an E and an E sharp in the same key signature. So if you're looking at these 7 notes, the key signature of F sharp, the last note is E sharp. E sharp, there's really no such thing as E sharp because E sharp is just the note F. 1 note higher than the note E is the note F. But they have to call it E sharp in order to stick to that rule, where you have all 7 of your musical alphabet letters. You have your F, G, A, B, C, D, and E. You have all 7 letters, nothing repeated. And in order to do that, while maintaining this adding a sharp to each key signature as you move clockwise around the circle of fifths, you run into this problem. You have this E sharp at the end. So E sharp is really just the note F, but you can't just call it F since F sharp is already being used. You understand? So you have to have all 7 of the letters in there, and it results in this enharmonic problem. So you may be thinking, why don't you just use your flat names? Instead of using the sharp names, why don't you just change all these sharp names to their flat names? Maybe that'll solve this enharmonic problem. So let's try that. So the first note, instead of being F sharp, is going to be called G flat. Same note, F sharp and G flat are the exact same note, but we're just calling it by its flat name now. So you have your 7 notes, you have your 7 letters of the musical alphabet, but you still have one problem. You have this note called C flat. So C flat is really just the same thing as B. If you look at a piano, you look at your note C on the piano, 1 less than C is the note B. But we have to call it C flat because you can't have a B and a B flat in the same 7 notes written out in this key signature. You can't have repeat letters. So we still have all 7 of our letters of the musical alphabet. We're calling them by their flat names, but we still have this one enharmonic problem. So when you call them by its sharp names, F sharp, you have your E sharp. That's the problem there. When you're in the key of G flat, which is the same key signature, the same notes, the same 7 notes, you still have that one problem. You have this note C flat, which is the same thing as B. So whether you call it by F sharp or whether you call it by G flat, you still have one note that's kind of funky. All right, but you have to do it if you want to follow the rules. So a lot of people will say, okay, well, there's 13 potential key signatures. You have all your other key signatures, but then you have F sharp as one key signature and you have G flat as another key signature. So in my opinion, and again, this is just my opinion, I'm not saying I'm right, I'm not saying I'm wrong, this is just my opinion, I think that that's just a redundancy. I think why should that be two different key signatures? Because if you were to put Mozart down on a piano and play some beautiful music in the key of G flat or in the key of F sharp, the audience is going to hear the exact same thing. The exact same notes are going to be being played. The exact same sound is going to be produced. So there's really no audible difference between G flat and F sharp. But if you look at it on paper, if you look at it on sheet music and you write all the notes in flats, or if you write all the notes in sharps, then there's a difference. So are they two different key signatures or are they the same key signature? I'll let you decide. All right, so let's now talk about the 15 key signature theory. So remember the rules. Starting on the top of the circle of fifths, there's no sharps, no flats in that particular key signature. Moving in the clockwise direction, you add a sharp each time. Moving in the counterclockwise direction, you add a flat each time. Also, when you write out a key signature, you can't have repeating notes. You have to have all 7 letters of the musical alphabet, which are A, B, C, D, E, F, and G. So you have to have all 7 letters there. You can add sharps, you can add flats. You just can't have any repeating letters. You can't have an F and an F sharp together in the same key signature when written down on paper. So the way that they come up with 15 is that you can potentially, C major has no sharps, no flats, G major has 1 sharp, D major has 2 sharps, A major has 3 sharps, E major has 4 sharps, B major has 5 sharps, F sharp major has 6 sharps. You can then say there's this key C sharp major, which would have 7 sharps. So if you write out the key signature of C sharp major, that's a key that has 7 sharps. So you could write it out that way. Those are notes, but 2 of those notes are going to be that enharmonic problem. So the reason that you don't usually see this C sharp major key is because it's way, way easier just to simply write it in its flat name. If you write these notes by their flat name instead of their sharp name, this becomes the key of D flat. So now if you look at the 7 notes of the key of D flat, you don't have any of these enharmonic problems. All right, so all of the notes are, you still have all 7 of your notes. You have your note D, E, F, G, A, B, and C. The notes that are supposed to be flat are flat. If you start on the note D flat and you play your major scale, it makes that do, re, mi, fa, sol, la, ti, do sound. Everything adheres to all the rules, and there's no enharmonic problems to consider whatsoever. You have 5 flats, which means that all the black keys are being used in this particular key, and then you have 2 natural notes. So that's why most people would prefer to say, okay, this is the key of D flat rather than C sharp. C sharp is very complicated. D flat is less complicated. D flat makes more sense. But people will still say, it is a possibility. So you can do the same thing starting on C major at the top, which contains no sharps and flats, and then move in the counterclockwise direction, adding a flat each time. 1 flat, 2 flat, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. Ultimately, you end up with a key signature that has 7 flats in it. But again, when you come up with that key signature that has 7 flats in it, you have 2 of those enharmonic problems. That is completely wiped away when you just say, okay, I'm not going to call this the key of C flat. I'm just going to call this the key of B. Calling it the key of B makes more sense. I don't know, it just makes more sense in my opinion. So, but that's how they come up with 15. So you have the 1 key signature that has no sharps and flats. Then you have 7 potential key signatures. 1 sharp, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. 7 potential flat key signatures. 7 plus 7 plus 1, you have 15. All right, so now let's look at the logic behind the 24 key idea. So some people will say, okay, there's 12 major keys and then there's 12 minor keys. So the reasoning behind this, I'm going to explain it. First, let me explain to you what the relative major-minor concept is. So for every major key, you can also view the major key from the minor perspective. So let's just take the key of C major, for example. So if you take your key of C major, you write out your 7 unique notes. There's no sharps, there's no flats. you can then create chords from using these 7 notes. The way that you create chords from a scale is you start on one of the notes, and then you just play every other note until you have 3 notes, and that's how you develop your triads. So starting on C, play every other note, C, E, G, that's your first triad. Starting on the second note, D, F, A, that's your second triad, found in this key signature. So if you do that, starting on each of these 7 notes, and then playing every other note until you have 3, that's how you develop your triads. So you can do this for any of the 12 possible key signatures. You take your unique set of 7 notes, start on one of the notes, every other note, do that 7 times, you're going to have your 7 chords. In any key signature, you're going to have 3 major chords, 3 minor chords, and 1 diminished chord. So in C major, these are your 3 major, 3 minor, and 1 diminished chord. So if you want to look at the same key signature from the minor perspective, it's all going to have the exact same stuff. It's going to have the same 7 unique notes. In this key, there's no sharps, no flats. You're still going to have the same 3 major chords, the same 3 minor chords, the same diminished chord. You're just treating which note or which chord is your tonal center differently. So the relative minor of C major is A minor. The relative major of A minor is C major. Every major key has a relative minor. Every minor key has a relative major. Relative major minor pair shares the exact same stuff. So if you take your 7 notes, C, D, E, F, G, A, and B, and instead of starting on C, you instead start on A, and you play the same 7 notes, A, B, C, D, E, F, and G, starting back on A, you're now playing what is known as the natural minor scale. So starting on C, ending on C, you have your major scale. Starting on A, ending on A, you have your natural minor scale. It's the same 7 notes, so you can still create chords from these 7 notes, and you do so the exact same way. You start on one of the notes, you play every other note until you have 3. That's how you get your triads. If you do that, you're going to have the exact same chords that are found in C major. So the exact same 3 major and 3 minor and 1 diminished chord that's found in A minor is the exact same 3 major, 3 minor, and 1 diminished chord that is found in C major. The exact same 7 chords. So the only difference is that from the major perspective, C is the tonal center. From the minor perspective, A, or A minor, the A minor chord is the tonal center. When you do that, when you write music using these unique set of 7 notes, using these chords that are created from these unique set of 7 notes, and you write music such that home is C, the music is going to sound happy. When you write music such that home, or such that the tonal center is the A minor chord, it's going to sound sadder. It's going to have a minor type of sound. But it's still all the same stuff. Now, there's one thing when it comes to writing music in minor. So when you write music, and I'm only going to briefly talk about this because this is just for a topic of another lesson. When you look at your chords, you write out your chords. There's 7 of them. If you're looking at chords from a major perspective, the fifth chord being a major chord, is going to have a tendency to pull you back to the 1 chord. The reason is because it contains what is known as a leading tone. So a leading tone is a note that is 1/2 step lower than the starting note. So if you were to play your major scale, do, re, mi, fa, sol, la, ti, do, it wants to pull you back to do. Once you get to that last note, that 7th note, it's not going to sound complete until you hit that last note again. So working your way through the major scale, C, D, E, F, G, A, B, C. As soon as you hit that C, you feel that resolution again. That B, that note B, is known as a leading tone. So the leading tone is contained within that G major chord. G major chord is your 5 chord. 5 chord always pulls back to 1. This is what is known as functional harmony. This is one of the key concepts of functional harmony. The 5 chord pulls back to the 1 chord. So in the key of C major, we're all good. That 5 chord is a major chord. It contains that leading tone. It pulls you back to that C major chord nicely. No problem. When you rearrange the chords and you look at these from the minor perspective, so same chords, same notes, same everything, when you do it like this, that 5 chord doesn't have that leading tone in it. The E minor chord contains the notes E, G, and B. So that note G is a whole step away from A. So it's not going to quite pull back to that A quite as nicely as if it were a G sharp. A G sharp is only 1/2 step away from A. So G sharp has that tension, G sharp, G sharp, G sharp, G sharp, A. So G sharp is all kinds of tension, A is resolution. So when you're in a minor key, a lot of times they'll take the 5 chord, the 5th chord, which in this case is E minor, and they'll make it into a major chord. And when they do that, really you're just taking an E, G, B, which is an E minor chord, and turning it into a major chord, which is E, G sharp, and B. So now you have that 5 chord that contains that leading tone, that G sharp, and that G sharp is going to bring you back to your 1 chord, which is A minor, a lot nicer than the E minor chord. So now you have a leading tone. But when you do that, you're throwing in an out of key note. All right, so you're throwing in a G sharp, so that's not part of this key signature. So some people may say, all right, well, if you have this key signature, or if you have this new scale, A, B, C, D, E, F, and G sharp, this is called your harmonic minor scale. It's not the natural minor scale anymore. Natural minor scale is just a major scale rearranged, which is what we've been doing so far. But when you throw in this one extra note, this G sharp note, this is what is known as the harmonic minor scale. So some people may say, well, if you look at these 7 notes, A, B, C, D, E, F, and G sharp, isn't that 7 unique notes? Can't you just say that those 7 unique notes are a key signature in and of itself? And the answer to that is no, because you can't take those notes, you cannot rearrange them in any possible way such that a major scale would be formed. So there's no way that you can take this set of 7 notes and arrange them in a way such that you'll get your do, re, mi, fa, sol, la, ti, do scale. You just can't do it. You can start on the note C, you can play C, D, E, F, G sharp, A, and B, but it's not going to have that do, re, mi, fa, sol, la, ti, do scale sound. So can you say that this harmonic minor scale is its own key signature? If you want to, you can, but then, what about other scales? What about like your melodic minor scale, which is another unique set of 7 notes? What about the Hungarian minor scale? What about, there's like so many scales out there. So if you're going to say that every single one of these scales that's in existence could potentially be its own key signature, well, then there's infinite key signatures, right? So the way that it works in Western music is that the 7 unique notes that are found in any given key signature must have some sort of way in which they can be arranged such that the do, re, mi, fa, sol, la, ti, do scale can be played. When you take the harmonic minor scale, you can't do that with those 7 notes. If you take the melodic minor scale, you can't do that with those 7 notes. If you take the Hungarian minor scale, I'm just using that as an example, you can't arrange those notes such that the major scale sound can be formed. So if you're going to call the harmonic minor scale a key of its own, then you have to also call all of the other scales in existence their own keys as well. So if you want to do that, then the answer to how many keys are there would be infinite, I guess. Well, not infinite. I haven't done the math, but the answer is a very, very, very big number. Even when you're in a major key and you're looking at stuff from the major key perspective, C, D, E, F, G, A, and B, and then you look at your chords, your 3 major chords, your 3 minor chords, your 1 diminished chord, a lot of times in the key of C major, you're going to see that E minor made into a major chord as well. A very common chord to be used. So it's out of key, but it's still used all the time. Build Me Up Buttercup. The song starts out on a C major, it then moves to an E major, it then moves to an F major, it then moves to a G major. The song is in C, but an E major chord is used in that song. It's an out-of-key chord because it contains one out-of-key note, but it's still used. So whether you're using that E major in a major perspective context or a minor perspective context, it's still out of key. So if you want to say that there's 12 major keys and there's 12 minor keys, go for it. That's fine. In my opinion, it's a lot simpler to just say there's 12 keys in total, and then you can use out of key chords and you can use out of key notes. Just be aware of when a chord is not part of the key, or be aware of when a specific note is not part of the key. So hopefully that made sense. Let's look at some of the other possibilities. Final thing I want to talk about in this video is the possibility of 72, 84, 105, and even some numbers in between that. So this may sound absolutely crazy, absolutely nuts, but in my opinion, it makes more sense to say, okay, there's potentially 72 keys or 84 keys. That makes more sense than it does to say there's 15. Because the way that we arrived at that 15 number is by saying, okay, you have C, which has no sharps and flats in it, and then you could potentially have 1 sharp, 2 sharps, 3 sharps, 4 sharps, 5, all the way down to 7 sharps, and then 7 flats, resulting in all these redundancies, resulting in this enharmonic problem occurring unnecessarily. So if you're going to say that there's 15 key signatures, there's a lot of redundancies there. If you're going to say that there's 24 key signatures, each key, there's 12 major keys, there's 12 minor keys, that makes a little more sense. But then that brings up the question, what's so special about the A minor chord for the key of C major, for example? So take your key of C major, C, D, E, F, G, A, and B. You look at your 7 chords that are found in the key of C major. You can then rearrange all that stuff to create the key of A minor. So A minor is now your home chord, your tonal center. The note A is your starting note of the natural minor scale. So if you're going to say that C major is a key and then A minor is a key, even though it contains all the same stuff, what's so special about the A? Why not? What about these other 7 notes? Why can't you do that with them? Why can't you treat any of those other 7 notes? You can, and that's what modes are. When you treat the C in this key signature, when you treat the C as your tonal center, and then the corresponding chord, the C major chord, as your home chord, and then you write music in that key signature using those 7 notes, and then you maintain that home chord feeling of C major being your tonal center chord, it's the Ionian mode. The sound that is produced is the Ionian mode sound. When you do the same stuff, but you make A to be your tonal center, A to be the starting note of the scale, the A minor chord is your tonal center of the music that's written, a different sound is produced. It's going to sound sadder. It's going to sound minor. It's Aeolian. The sound that you're hearing when you write music like that, with A minor being your tonal center, is the Aeolian mode sound. C major is your Ionian mode sound. A minor is your Aeolian mode sound. If you instead rearrange the same stuff, the exact same chords, the exact same notes, but you make it such that the D minor chord is your tonal center, and then you play the scale starting on the note D, ending on the note D, you write music, you produce music using just these 7 notes, just these 7 chords, but D minor maintains its tonal center feeling, the result is going to be the Dorian mode. When you do it with the E chord, the result is the Phrygian mode. When you do it with the F chord, the result is the Lydian mode. So that's what modes are. So if you're going to say that Ionian is special, and then you're going to say Aeolian is special, well, you kind of got to say that all these other modes, you can do that same thing with the other modes. So if you're going to say there's 24, you kind of have to say that there's 84 keys. If there's 12 key signatures, each of which can be viewed from 7 different perspectives instead of just 2, 12 times 7 is 84. The reason that 84 is a little bit less likely than 72 is because for any given key signature, you have 3 major chords, 3 minor chords, and 1 diminished chord. So if you're going to take that diminished chord and say, okay, we're going to make this diminished chord to be our tonal center, so you're in the key signature of C major, you have your 3 major chords, your 3 minor chords, your 1 diminished chord, B diminished. If you're going to say that your B diminished chord is your home, your tonal center, you're going to try to write music such that everything resolves back to this B diminished chord. The problem with diminished chords is they don't really have that same sense of stability. They don't really have that same sense of homeness. Is that a word? Homeness. As all of the other major and minor chords do. So for any given key signature, you have your 3 major chords, which you can make home. You have your 3 minor chords, which you could make home. You then have that diminished chord, which you're going to have trouble making that home because diminished chords just don't sound stable. Diminished chords in and of themselves have tension. They have the feeling of wanting to go somewhere else. So it's going to be very, very difficult to make that your home chord. So for that reason, I'm going to say in any given key signature, you could potentially take 6 of the chords in the key signature and make it your tonal center. So that's how I come up with 72. So you have 12 possible key signatures, each of which can be viewed from 6 different perspectives. 12 times 6 equals 72. So 72 seems like a more likely scenario than 84. 72 also seems like a more likely scenario than 15. 72 also, to me, makes more sense than saying 24, because what's so special about minor, So anything besides 12 is too complicated, but I'm just saying 72 makes more sense to me than 24. But then you also have your 105. All right, so 105, if you want to be really complicated and you want to be really redundant and you want to go with that, okay, there's 15 key signatures, each of which can be viewed, from 7 different potential perspectives. 7 times 15 is 105. Is that right? 15, 30, 45, 60, 75, 90, 105. So if you're going to say that there's 15 key signatures, 7 different perspectives each, you come up with 105. So not many people are going to say that there's 105 keys. Most people are either going to say there's 12, there's 24, but then you're also going to hear a lot of people saying that there's 15 or that there's 30. If you don't believe me, go onto a music theory forum, go onto a music theory Facebook group, just ask the question, say, hey, how many key signatures are there? I guarantee you that not everyone's going to give you the same answer. My opinion is there's 12. I think that makes the most sense. That's the simplest. When at any time that there's numbers involved, the lowest number generally is the one that makes the most sense. So I'm going to stick with thinking that there's 12 key signatures. So that's it. That's the end of this video. Thanks for watching. See you later.